If you've been following the news over the past couple of weeks, you've no doubt heard about the crisis in Sudan. The fighting, which erupted on April 15th, has compounded an already fragile situation in the country, forcing more than 100,000 people to flee Sudan and displacing more than 300,000 Sudanese inside the country. Even before the outbreak of the current conflict, one-third of Sudan's population was dependent on humanitarian aid, and the United Nations has warned that the devastating fight threatens to turn the existing humanitarian crisis into a full-blown catastrophe. But what exactly is going on in Sudan, and how can theories from the field of international relations help us understand the crisis there? Hey everyone, I'm Noah Zerbe. I'm a professor of international relations at California State Polytechnic University Humboldt. Welcome to IR Explainer, where I explore the theories and concepts behind current events in global politics. A former British colony in Northwest Africa, Sudan has experienced more than 15 military coups since independence in 1956. Its post-colonial history has been scarred by conflict, political instability, and military rule. The current government came to power as the result of the struggle for power between two military factions, the Sudanese military, led by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, led by Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. The two sides had been part of a power-sharing agreement that came to power following the 2019 coup against deposed President Omar al-Bashir, who himself had ruled the country since a 1989 coup. The 2019 coup followed months of popular protest, with demonstrations by the Sudanese Professional Association calling for the establishment of a civilian-led government. A power-sharing agreement had attempted to bring military ruling council and civilian opposition alliance into a coherent government, paving the way for democratic elections and civilian rule. However, in 2021, the military dissolved the power-sharing council and declared a state of emergency, declaring the country would hold democratic elections by 2023. The current crisis was triggered as an internationally backed plan to launch a new transition to civilian rule was coming to fruition. The plan required that both the army and the RSF concede power to the new civilian government, for the RSF to be integrated into the Sudanese armed forces, and for an integrated chain of command subject to civilian oversight be established for the military. The fighting between the RSF and the military broke out on April 15th, with each side blaming the other for the violence. There are concerns that the fighting, which so far has taken place primarily in the capital, Khartoum, one of Africa's largest urban areas, could spread into wider areas, dash efforts to establish civilian rule, and undermine efforts to rebuild Sudan's economy, which has been devastated by decades of autocracy, conflict, and isolation. There are also concerns that fighting could spread into the broader region, potentially destabilizing it. The current crisis in Sudan can be understood as a classic example of state fragility and conflict, two interrelated concepts in the field of international relations that are often used to explain the root causes of political violence and instability. State fragility is understood as a condition where the state lacks the capacity to effectively govern, to provide basic services to its citizens, or to maintain law and order within its borders. This often results in the breakdown of social cohesion, an erosion of trust in state institutions, and thus a rise in violence between different groups within the country. Sudan's history of conflict and instability can be traced back to its colonial past, where the British divided and ruled the country along racial and ethnic lines, creating a legacy of inequality and tension that persists in the country to this day. Since gaining independence in 1956, Sudan has been plagued by a series of coups, periods of military rule, and civil war, all of which have fueled state fragility and conflict. Decades of autocratic rule, political repression, and economic mismanagement have contributed to the deterioration of state institutions, including the military, police, and judiciary, which are often viewed as corrupt and inefficient by ordinary citizens. The current crisis in Sudan highlights the challenges of building sustainable peace and stability in fragile states. The recent fighting between the military and the RSF has undermined efforts to establish civilian rule and democratic governance, which are critical components to a stable and prosperous society. The flight of refugees and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of people further compound the humanitarian crisis in the country, exacerbating social and economic inequality and reducing the state's capacity to provide basic services such as healthcare, education, and food security. The current crisis also highlights the complex relationship between international intervention and human security. By human security, we generally mean the protection of individuals from threats to their safety, dignity, and basic rights, including threats posed by conflict, economic instability, and other forms of violence. International intervention, whether through diplomatic, economic, or military means, can play a role in promoting human security by addressing the root causes of conflict, supporting peace-building and reconciliation efforts, and protecting vulnerable populations. However, such intervention can also be fraught with challenges and unintended consequences, particularly when it comes to issues of sovereignty and the potential for external actors to exacerbate conflicts rather than resolve them. In the case of Sudan, the United Nations has been involved in a number of efforts to promote human security and stability in the country. For example, the UN mission in Sudan, UNMISS, was established in 2005 to support the implementation of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement that ended the long-running conflict between the North and South Sudan. The UN has also been involved in peacekeeping efforts in the Darfur region, in Western Sudan, and other areas that have been the site of long-running conflict between government and rebel groups. However, the effectiveness of such interventions has been mixed at best, and the situation in Sudan remains deeply unstable. This highlights the challenges of external intervention in addressing the root causes of the conflict and in promoting human security, particularly in situations where local actors have competing interests and priorities. The competing interests are exacerbated by the wide variety of external actors who have interest in the outcomes of the situation in Sudan. The United States, Russia, China, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and others all have designs on and favor different configurations of power in a post-conflict Sudan. All of this suggests that the conflict in Sudan could have an expansive and protracted impact on both the people of Sudan and on the region more broadly. But that's it for now. If you found this video helpful, click the thumbs up button and consider subscribing to catch future explainers as they're released. Please leave any questions you have in the comment section below, and I'd also welcome any suggestions for future explainer topics. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.